Bonjour encore. Nous sommes très contents de vous avoir à Paris International Film Festival. Je m'appelle Lesley Hunter, the moderator, et ça me fait beaucoup de plaisir. I am very pleased to introduce Ashley Maria, Director of Pioneers in Skirts and winner of the coveted Director Guild of America DGA Award. Ashley was also featured by the DGA Women's Steering Committee as a director who represents the future of women in film. Also joining today is Leanne Berst, the producer of Pioneers in Skirts. Leanne is an activation marketer who works on projects like film and Olympic activation. Fun fact, she also happens to be Ashley's mom. So welcome to both of you today. And to those of you who are listening, we are really excited to have you here with us. And you can go see Pioneers in Skirts in the virtual cinema, which should be in the bottom right of your screen. All right, well, thank you both, Ashley and Leanne, for being here today. I'm so excited to interview with you both. And
Hey.
I loved your film. You know, as I mentioned to you, it's wonderful. This topic is something that needs to be discussed, and more activities need to be done to help women advance, including in the workplace. So I'm curious, when did you first realize that you were being treated differently in the film industry for being a woman?
You know what's interesting about that is I feel like there's this kind of conversation that happens continuously of you just have to work hard, you just have to believe in yourself, you just have to keep persevering. And so I think it took me probably longer to realize that the walls I kept hitting were because I was a woman, because I was just trained that you need to volunteer, you need to do everything, you need to learn everything, you need to go to all of these panels and networking events. Like, you have to do it all if you're going to be considered in this industry. Well, come to find out, no matter what I did, I was still just looked at as a woman. And that came with its own biases, stereotypes, unfair perceptions that I did not realize was being placed on me without me even knowing it. So I think it took me longer to realize that's what was happening. And that's why we made Pioneers in Skirts, because we wanted to really let people know that this is going on sooner in their career so they don't burn out like I did. It only took me a few years to burn out and go, what the heck? Why am I not seeing the progress that frankly my male colleagues are seeing? And it was a conversation with my mom, Leanne, who said, hey, it looks like you're dealing with something that I dealt with when I started in my career, but it may not be as obvious or as overt, right? So she would say, hey, when I started out, they were talking about my outfit. Maybe they were, asking me to take notes rather than actually, lead the meeting, things like that. And we go, oh, that's not happening today. Well, it is, but it's done in such this like spun around way where they're not talking about my outfit, but they sure are deciding who I am based on what I'm wearing.
Yes.
But they're not telling me that. So to answer your question, I mean, I think I realized it when I finally burnt out and wondered if this was the career choice for me.
And at what point did you say, okay, enough is enough. I have to do something about this?
Well, it was, we actually, it's funny because if you go on our website, we have actually a behind the scenes
Yeah.
clip on there where we actually had that conversation. We were on a trip to the beach and we had a friend who had a camera and she was I got really angry. We cut that scene from the movie, but it shows how upset I was. And hearing, like Ashley just said, hearing about it and what she's going through, at first, the first thing that was happening in my mind was, oh my gosh, maybe you're not doing something right. Maybe you need to fix yourself. And we had been going through that conversation for several years, right?
Are you wearing the right clothes? Are you wearing too much makeup, not enough makeup? Like, we kept trying
maybe
to
you need to
figure
wear
out
your glasses. Maybe you need to put your hair back. Maybe it needs to be up. Maybe it doesn't need to be
your
up.
voice, right? So you're going through all of these things. Like, what exactly am I doing wrong?
Right. And then as we were driving, it occurred to us, nothing. You're not doing anything. And I didn't do anything wrong. At first, I thought I was doing something wrong as a mom, right? I had a professional career. Everything was was, you know, uh, I fought for everything I had. I had just thought she had to fight for it too, just that that's the way life is. But
Yes.
then when you start realizing that I did everything I could possibly do to help my daughter avoid the many things I had to fight for, and at the time, there were many, many things I had to fight for that I didn't even know I was fighting for, right? So as you grow up and you get all these lessons learned, you try to pass that down to your child. Well, you know, she got the coveted internships. She was paid for her internships, which is really challenging. But later on, we found out most women are not paid for their internships, but she was. Her first year of film school, getting her master's degree in film, she wins the DGA award, which is the top award that directors can ever win, right? She won awards. She was number, out of 650 kids, she was like number 3 in her class.
Amazing.
So it's like, so she's the kid that you say, okay, she's set, she's ready to go. And her whole entire life, she was confident in herself, right? She knew what she wanted and she went after it. And then to hear that she's not getting the jobs that she's going after, to find out that people are treating her the way they are on set, not respecting her as the director, making assumptions that, you know, she's the girlfriend, making assumptions she's there to do hair, was really bothering me. And then other really overt things were happening to her on set too, that made us very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But, you know, we decided at that point, we had made a film together before. I thought I was done, you know, go on with my career. But we said, you know, at the beginning we thought, well, let's go off and figure this out. If you're going through it, other people must be too. There must be some answers.
Yes.
And so we ended up with this film. It took a while to make it, because as soon as we started making the film, we realized there was a beast of a topic.
It 100% is. And so when you were discussing, you know, the topic of not wearing enough makeup, wearing too much, you walking on set and people assuming, like you said, you're there to do makeup or not the more kind of executive type. Yes, I, as well as I'm sure many women can relate. And, you know, I happen to run a business and have done some work in the entertainment industry. But even as a business owner, I've had people say, "Oh, you run a business? I thought you were a model." And not that it's a bad thing to be considered attractive. However, it is one of those things like, well, it's not like you just have to be considered an attractive woman and that's it, and have no executive ability or executive skills. So I definitely can relate. And many of the things in Pioneers and Skirts, I was like, oh my goodness, yes, 100%. I totally empathize and understand. So that's why I think it was critical and a wonderful thing that you both, as well as your crew and everyone involved, really address those really crucial topics. So yes, and what both of you, including Ashley, what prompted you to expand outside of the film and entertainment industry in terms of discussing and documenting gender discrimination?
We both found that there weren't a lot of solutions in the film industry. If anything, I had colleagues, I had mentors who were telling me, don't rock the boat, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Are you really going to call out your industry like this? And I said, well, if I don't do something, what's the point? Like, I can't keep going forward like this in the film industry. I was really questioning, is this the career I've always wanted? And obviously that frustrated Mom, because I've been wanting to be a filmmaker since I was 5. We show that scene in the movie, right?
Yes.
So, wait, I blanked on the question.
No problem.
Yeah.
Oh, just what prompted you to expand outside of just film?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So in our research, we actually discovered that the STEM fields were doing a lot more to improve the current situation, but also the pipeline to get more women interested in STEM. And in case you don't know, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And they are even working to include art, so STEAM, So by bringing more women into the STEM fields, they are improving a lot of how we develop and how we engineer and how we really improve our world around us. And so we were looking into what they were doing to see, okay, are these solutions that we can actively bring into the film industry? And with that, we started to go even bigger and just see how CEOs were changing their environment when they started to see, oh, obviously working mothers, I had no idea it was so hard. We need to change what we're doing. And we go, okay, well, it seems like we need to get everybody on board with this. So yeah, so we left the film industry, frankly, because there wasn't a lot happening. The numbers weren't moving. And we just said, okay, well, where else can we find hope? And we went into other fields because it's pervasive across all industries. It's just some are more active and see the change faster. So that's where we went.
100%. You mentioned in the very beginning of Pioneers in Skirts to the group of Girl Scouts in the filmmaking class that there are certain regulations in place that require women to be hired, such as in the film industry, as you mentioned. Similar actions have been put into place for disadvantaged groups to advance in the workplace, such as affirmative action, and recent legislation requiring publicly held corporations in California to have at least one woman on the company's board. Do you feel that such legislation is overall a positive for women and minorities? And what do you feel are the pros and cons of such legislation? Kind of a two-part question, but any thoughts on that whole subject?
Yeah, we definitely like it, right? Now, why do you have these things that come about? It's because we're creeping towards change right now. And in fact, if you look back at what happened in 2020 during the pandemic, we're still in it.
Yeah.
The status of women has decreased. Everything that we have worked so hard to achieve has moved far back in the numbers. So when you make a rule that says pay attention, it's just tapping the organization, tapping the leadership, and reminding them of their responsibility in our culture. Now, nobody's asking for somebody to hire somebody that isn't qualified. We're just asking for people in organizations to hire people, and as they look for that person, look deeper, look broader, and that's in two different directions, right? So we do talk about that in the film. We talk about looking deeper. Right now, the way that women or people are being hired is, I'm going to hire somebody that I'm used to working with, someone who might look like me and sound like me and do the same things that I do. But we're asking, and these rules are asking for organizations to stop doing that and start looking out and then further down, because particularly people who are disadvantaged, it could be women, it could be minorities of any kind. There's a reason why they're not in those positions. All the statistics we show in the film document that. And for people to get that opportunity to move up in a corporation, for example, you must give them more of that opportunity. You have to look a lot deeper. You can't have qualifications that say you must be an executive manager to move up. You need to say you need to be a manager to move up, and change your hiring practices.
Yes.
Yes.
100%. In fact, and I'm blanking on the name of the lady who you were interviewing, who gave really good insight on unconscious bias and how it's so prevalent. And that, yeah, it's major. It's a major thing. And so that discussion in itself about unconscious bias was really kind of touched, especially when she was talking about even SAT and certain tests where, when boys and girls fill out gender in the beginning or sex in the beginning, that, women tended to have a more negative effect versus if it was put at the end of the test, they weren't having kind of those things rolling through your head like, oh yes, I am a woman, I'm not supposed to be good at math, or I'm not supposed to. So those things really do affect the way we think. I really resonated with what I believe her name was Andres said, the senior researcher. Yeah, she was great. Words on describing the fine line that women walk between being competent and likable, particularly in a work setting. Do you agree that this is the case for a woman that is, let's say, is very competent, but doesn't exert the effort or even care at all to be liked? Do you feel that this type of woman will have a harder time in a corporate or work environment?
Well, I think what she was trying to say is you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So if she's not
Yeah.
likable, but she's taken more seriously, and then vice versa, you're likable, but I don't really think you know what you're doing.
And can you imagine the kind of energy that all of women have to put out in order to try and walk that line of being both
Yes.
competent and likable?
Yes.
Because it's harder.
Hmm.
It's harder for women to be in a career and feel like they have to be both.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they do. And in our culture, if you're a man, and again, unfortunately, if you're a man, you don't have to be both. You could be whatever you want to be. So it's a lot harder. It's so much energy, and it's very draining for women to be able to walk that fine line and wear the clothes that people are expecting her to wear, and not too much makeup. But she has to wear some makeup, right? So it's very, very challenging. And then if you want to put that cherry on top and say, okay, Lesley, you have to do this and this and this and this and this. And oh my gosh, are you at the age that you're going to bear children? Let me frighten you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the point is,
Exactly.
we show all of this in the film so that women watching, especially if they're starting in their careers or maybe even a few years in, they can see what's kind of subtly going on, and then also realize that they're not alone. And
Yeah.
then more importantly, the people who are decision makers, the people who are working with those women, they watch the film and they go, oh, I had no idea that she had to use up this energy to walk a fine line. So
Yes.
so we purposefully structured Pioneers in Skirts so that both women and men can watch the film and step away with their own ideas, their own actions. And that's a big one. I know I walk on set and I stop assuming things about people, but I have to catch myself, right? I have to go, okay, what bias just flew into my head
Right.
just now without realizing. And that was one of our biggest things, is we had to forgive ourselves a lot of the time. Is how many times did we say, oh, I like her, but does she know what she's doing? Oh gosh, stop it. You have to forgive yourself and then start to grab it when it's happening. I mean, like you were saying before, with the mandated hiring practices, that's the only way you're going to call out your biases and realize that that might be in play. If you're actively saying, wait, why are only white people in this room? I didn't even realize it until they told me I can't keep doing that.
Right. Right, exactly. And there were a couple of things that you mentioned that I'm sure they'll come back that I was like, oh, right. That's I love this whole topic. But on what we were saying too about the fine line, walking that. I also liked what Jane Park said, the CEO, about being higher up in your career and actually liking the idea of hiring a woman who is aggressive. And it's interesting because that topic, and I think even actually you mentioned, the reference to being a bitch, being concerned if you're more assertive. And, it's interesting because there's totally a double standard in terms of, if a woman's very direct and just knows what she wants, that she's considered aggressive. Whereas men that are maybe 4 times as aggressive as her, just like, oh, well, he's just doing his job. He's just doing what he's supposed to do. That's really interesting. I know that there's a sensitivity even amongst women that I have that are I'm fortunate to have a group of, I call it my tribe of, boss babes that are doing great things. And, one of my friends discussed that, yeah, with her every time in the office, she's just very direct and authoritative. Like, it's like there's some stigma, and she's called aggressive. And it's interesting because that term, I understand that enough people do say it is kind of a negative. I resonate with Jane Parks. I think being aggressive as a woman is actually a great trait. I mean, I think you can be aggressive and still know how to balance that to where in other areas of your life, you know, you're a good wife or good friend, things like that. But I think in terms of in the workplace, I find it very attractive. So that term, I notice where I see it as a positive. If a woman gets out there, knows what she wants and execute, it's unfortunately used, I think, in a lot of contexts as kind of more of a term, a demeaning term or a negative term. So yeah, that's something.
Good for her to have a circle of women around her to remind her that if this
Yes.
person calls her aggressive, it's a compliment.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's portraying something that's going on with that person.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I like that you say that, because I think I had heard aggressive so much in such a negative way, especially because there's a bias that female directors in particular, they're either aggressive or don't know what they're doing. That's our fine line.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the likable, competent, but we have aggressive or indecisive. Those are our terms.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be either of those, but my gosh, people kept calling me aggressive.
Yeah.
So what do I do? And that was a lot of what led up to me going.
So you know what this leads up to, Lesley, is the two pieces of the film. When you watch the film, you see we talk about changing the future for young women, right? So we want to achieve gender equality for all human beings. These are human rights. They're not women's rights. They're not whatever. They're human rights. So we talk about that, but we're also realistic, right? What we're talking about right now is reality, no matter what. So we talk about in the film a good chunk of it of, okay, so it is what it is. We're treading water. We're doing the backstroke into this culture of mess, where we have some people who look at you and say, you know, you're too aggressive. Oh, I love you being aggressive, right? So what do? And part of what Jane Parks was talking about also was that you have that fortitude and grit to get past those biases. So when you have somebody on your team, a female or someone who's underrepresented on your team, and they have that grit and fortitude to be able to deal with and overcome and get past those comments and those setbacks, then you have a winning team. Then you're able to have that person lead on your team and get past it. That person's not going to be doing that treading water and saying, oh my gosh, everybody's thinking about me this way. No, she's actually saying, well, forget it. I'm moving on. And if you don't like it, buddy, then I'm moving on. And she's able to handle that. And now when we first started talking about this film during our research, we interviewed a basketball coach in one of the top universities in the United States. And we asked her about her players, and she is a basketball coach for a female basketball team in college. And she said that she gets calls all the time from big companies asking do you have a basketball that knows anything about finance? Do you have a basketball player that knows about this, a basketball player that can do that? And what she came to learn is that companies see this as well, not just Jane Parks. Right?
Yes.
So corporations are saying, listen, I need to hire somebody with that fortitude and grit, because what she's coming into, this cultural world we all understand, we need someone who has that fortitude and grit. And that's when we first discovered that women who play sports, the outcome of that is having that grit and fortitude that I'm talking about. And in further research, we discovered that 96% of women in C-suite, it's an Ernst & Young study, 96% played a team sport in college. So during the Ernst & Young study, they discovered that during their questions is that all of these women say that they were able to make it to where they made it in their corporation seat. Was because they played a sport, which taught them to be able to fail, be able to get past those naysayers, to work harder, get up again, brush themselves off during a loss, right? So, yeah, and they're competitive. Exactly.
Yes. No, I could absolutely see that, see those type of skills that really help build strength, like you mentioned in sports that lead to other areas of life, of course, like the career sector. So yeah, that's very interesting. That's extremely interesting. You interviewed a lot of from various ex- uh, parts of their life, various experiences from the CEOs to Queen City, I believe it was, or
Queen
Queen.
City Robotics.
Yes, Queen City Robotics. That was very interesting as well. To the military commander, I believe it was. The
Yeah,
female.
she's a general.
General, that's right. Yeah, she was extremely interesting to talk to as well. And I believe she mentioned that, people kind of gave her the chance. They didn't give this, oh, you're a woman type of attitude. And that really like helped her flourish. That's so important. That's so important because I can imagine that, maybe she was fortunate, but I could see a lot of other women in her position, especially and the army, military, those type of things where we perceive it to be like, oh man, tough this. So she was blessed, but I think it's amazing the type of environment she had that was really conducive towards her. So yeah, so kind of I'm curious to ask you, how was it interviewing Joan Darling and Norman Lear? Joan Darling seems like a hoot, and I mean that in the best way. She just got a lot of, she's got a lot of personality, and it seems like she's a person that you could really learn a lot from.
She was my teacher at UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina. And she was one of the first people to help me just see how I could be a creative person and how I could make movies. And she did this class called directing actors, and it's directors acting so that they can understand how to really be nicer to their actors and go, I see what I'm putting you through.
Yeah.
She's always kind of encouraged me to just reach into that other, more vulnerable side. And so being able to interview her and learn more about her, we brought in Norman Lear and she brought him in. She said, this was the first time they had seen each other for a while. And this is a lot of the stuff he said she had never heard before. And it was so exciting to just be there to experience this moment with her as she's hearing how inspired he was by her. So here I am saying, hey, Joan, you're so amazing. You've taught me so much. And Norman says, you're so amazing. You helped me so much. And so I think it was like this full circle of, this woman who inspired me. It was so great to be able to have that moment with her. And then interviewing Norman Lear. I mean, talk about a hoot. Like go on our website. You're going to see where we sang together.
Oh,
all of our
wow.
jokes.
I'll definitely check that. Yeah.
He and then his producers even told us that some of the stuff he said in the interview, he's never said before. And they were surprised. So that's our little hint, like, go watch.
Yes, I absolutely will. I absolutely will.
Because I was so nervous, though, I have to tell you, Lea-Ann was off camera, like yelling out the questions. I would go like, did we answer that question? I don't even know. Like, did we? She's like, yes, you got it. I'm like, okay.
Well, the reason that we decided to interview the two of them was because at the time we were still trying to understand Hollywood, who's doing it right. We did know that Norman Lear, he's the champion of human rights. Everything he does is through the lens of being fair and humane with people. So when we realized that he gave Joan Darling her chance to become a director in Hollywood, and she became one of the first female directors that was paid. You understand? There's a huge difference between directing a movie and getting paid to do it, right? And he hired her to actually direct a TV show called Mary Hartman. And in the movie, he retells the story about, and the two of them talk about what it was in her that he saw. And basically it was no big deal to him. To her, it was everything. And it opened up doors for her to direct huge television movies that she's pretty famous for. So, you know, what did that whole scene tell us? The scene told us, men need to be involved more than anything, right? In the beginning. Men have been involved. Men are not the bad guys. But hey, we have to leave the film industry, because having just a handful of people that know what's going on around them, like we do, isn't going to cut it, right? So we left the film industry.
I thought it was great that you did. Of course, matters of that topic in the film industry are interesting, but it's also just gave great, you know, depth and like an overall holistic view to say, hey, this is not just a problem in the film industry. This is a problem in probably but at least most industries. Yes, especially those that are more male dominated or considered male dominated, which is a lot of industries. So yes. And I found, you know, with that conversation with Joan and Norman, I found Norman's confession to be very interesting. The one where he said that when he encountered you, he thought, oh, this is an attractive woman. I want to hear what she has to say. And in effect, was essentially more open and receptive to you as a woman and an attractive woman. Yet there are other situations, as were mentioned by some of the ladies in the documentary, where you were discussing with them around the table, where attractive women are taken less seriously because of their looks. So do you feel that amongst a group of women, it is a plus or a detraction of being considered good looking, especially in regards to being taken seriously on the job?
Well, I mean, my first reaction is no. I mean, it doesn't hurt, because obviously I feel like it's going to take us some time before a woman can just be whoever she wants to be and can be the leader in the room. I had some unfortunate conversations with some colleagues of mine, and I said, what do you think a woman leader looks like? And he's like, she's put together, she's got her hair done, she's this, she's that, you know, and you go, okay, so she's got to be perfect, show up perfect every day. And then, of course, I gave them the opposite, you know, scenario of what does the guy look like necessarily, right? All this to say, just what's happening right now is like a conversation of how do we deal with it until everyone starts to check their biases and we can start to just be humans and focus on the work. So it doesn't hurt, but studies show it's not exactly pushing our movement forward very fast. So you know, it's hard. And I think that's what I was confronted with a lot of confusing advice. And I think the most helpful advice is it stinks that we have to worry so much about how we engage it and think about it. And it would be nice if I could just wear lipstick and it's for me. And I think that's something, didn't we all learn that in the pandemic?
Exactly. Yes, 100%.
And so I think you're not knowing it, but this is why we named the movie the way we named it.
Yeah,
I love the name, by the way.
So you know, if you think about it, the reason why we have in skirts was so that if you want to be a leader, we want you to be able to wear a skirt if you want to wear one. Wear pants if you want. Wear whatever you want. And that's our goal, is women who are taking charge of their careers and their lives and looking the way that makes them feel comfortable. That's the end game for us. So, and it came actually from that scene that we talked about in the beginning, where I'm angry in the car driving. I had to pull off the road. I was so upset. And I said to her, you have to, in my life, right? I'm 58 years old. So in my career,
looking good, Mom.
Yeah.
Or do we care?
Do we stay out? But I'm going to say stay out of the sun. Stay out of the sun.
Yes.
So, but the thing is, you walk in feeling this big. Let me move my hands. This big, and as you're going along with your career, you're getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and you end up into a box, and you say, oh, okay, that's going to work for me. you realize I need to curl my hair. Oh, that's too curly. I need to wear makeup. Oh, that's too much makeup. Oh, I have to put on a little bit of makeup. Oh, I can't put red. I got to put pink. Oh, wait, it can't be too pink. And my earrings, they can't dangle too far down. They have to be a little higher up. My shirt has to come up, but not too up. It can come down,
Right.
not too down. And you start going into this box of where you sit in the boardroom and what clothes you're wearing, and at what point are you speaking up during the meeting? Can I speak up now? And as you get along, but then when you look back, you're 45 years old saying, okay, now I figured it out. Right? And I'm telling you, this is the truth. That's the way it works. And in the film, we decided we want people to know, we don't want you to be 45 and figure out that box that you're supposed to be in. We don't want you in a box. You don't other people don't have to be in a box. Why do you have to be in a box? So pioneers in skirts is a metaphor. It's just a way of saying, be who you want to be, and but be in charge of who you are. Yeah.
Yes, and you can rock the skirt. Well, I love the name. I mean, the that itself, you know, even without knowing, I was like, what is this about? You know, it really pulled me in, because I love those that are pioneers, especially women pioneers, but I also love looking cute. And it's one of those things where, like you mentioned, the duality, I feel that it's great to have both, and that, you know, but I also agree with you that there is a lot of thought. And when you were saying that, thinking about, is it too pink? Is it, can I wear red? Or no, I got to wear, you know, shirt, not too low, but not too high. You know, all of these things in my head when you were saying that. My personal thought is, would we really be thinking about that much if we were in a work office or environment that was filled only with women? And so then it's that other thought of, wow, this is really how we're really doing these things, for better or for worse, to kind of gain or gauge the opinion of what our male counterparts think. So yeah, when you were saying that, I was like, yeah, would we really be thinking that hard about this if we were in a woman-dominated field, or if all of our colleagues were women? Maybe, but likely not for myself.
I always think I never look cool enough whenever I'm on a set with all women. They always look way cooler than I do. So I don't know. I might up my game.
Maybe.
More.
Yeah.
I'm like, they look so cool. They all.
That's a point. That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That reminds me too, when you know, I've heard guys say this, not my husband per se, but I've heard situations where, you know, girls are, let's say a boyfriend and a girlfriend are together, and the girlfriend's getting ready to go out with her girlfriends. And I've heard where maybe a guy will say like, oh, why you dress up so much? And it's, you know, not, like I said, not my husband, because that would hurt. But, you know, it's one of those things where, regardless of my thoughts on, you know, the boldness of the guy saying that, you know, women oftentimes, they don't, at least I'll speak for myself, and maybe for you too. I, as a woman, you know, I like dressing up, and I'm glad that my husband gets satisfaction out of it. But oftentimes it's for myself, or I dress up more to be with other women, because like you said, you're like, oh, okay, you know, I want to look good for my girls. So it is interesting.
Oh, I love your dress. You go, oh, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, good point. 100%. And you know what? Yeah.
So important. It's just what we were saying. It's so important for you to decide who you want to be, not who you need to be. You know,
yes.
Take that how you want it. But I just mean, it was everything for me to start going, I'm going to stop second guessing myself. I'm going to decide the director I want to be. I mean, we made Pioneers in Skirts, but it was something that I needed to go through. And then, okay, now let's share it with the world and see if some other people can skip those 6 years it took me. Let's get a little faster, and you know, you start to be your own pioneer.
Yes, that's totally agree. And I'm glad you did this for yourself, because even though it is something that would kind of help you get through your process, it's helping so many other women. And as you mentioned earlier, I believe Lea-Ann mentioned, or both of you mentioned, that this is a film that, even though it appeals to women, it's not just for women. And I did watch it with my husband, and we had great and sometimes, very intense conversation about these topics. But I love that. Like I mentioned, can be aggressive at times and passionate. And so I was like, why do you feel this way? And, it felt like a legal dispute going on. But it was very interesting because it really brought some topics to light, some that even, to mention this, I thought you might appreciate this too, about men, especially higher up roles, and how they are responsive to women. Both my husband as well as another friend of mine are both older. My husband happens to be Caucasian, so it kind of falls into the demographic of the majority, or traditionally. And he and my other friend, similar demographic, were hiring managers, at their firms. They were in finance, and they both have said to me at different times. And my husband said the other day, when we were watching Pioneers in Skirts, he said, that's interesting. He said, because I am actually more biased to hire women because, in his opinion, they're smarter, they work hard, they're, even though he's not looking necessarily for creative because he's in finance, he's like, they have more levels of creativity. And so he's like, if anything, I'm probably more biased if I see a woman versus a male candidate as a financial manager to hire the female, but of course they'll, try to be fair and not this. So that's interesting. And my other, a friend who was high up executive with Wells Fargo, I noticed, I was around him one time, and he had a book on like women and minorities in the workplace. And I said, well, oh, that's interesting that you're reading this, and being an older white male. And, and I said, well, what prompted you to read that? He said, well, I've always found that, the people that I speak with, especially those that are either from other countries, male or woman, female, and my female counterparts, or people that have been hired into, at the time, Wells Fargo, said they always are just as hardworking, kind of like what my husband said, and have a certain type of open-mindedness and broad scope that oftentimes the male counterparts don't have. And I just wanted to read more about this, and I really enjoy the females that I work with. And that same individual, even though I didn't go that route, went to another business. At the time, I was applying for jobs in finance, and he actually, recommended me and served as kind of what you mentioned in the film, like a sponsor or mentor, and put his name on me and said, that's a big deal for him. He doesn't put his name on a lot of people. And so I really took that to heart. And even though it may not be the majority, maybe men like him, my friend Kevin, or my husband Vince, that is something that was just such a beautiful thing to me. So I just thought I'd bring that up, because I thought you might appreciate that. Although it could be better, there are some men in higher up positions that, do understand the value and the different and valuable contributions that a woman can bring to the workforce. So.
Yeah, I think these conversations are so important to have, right?
Yeah.
This is an impact film, which is different than a regular movie or a regular documentary. So it's an impact documentary. And our key purpose with this film is to have that conversation just like you had at home with your husband. People actually watch the movie at home, especially in 2020.
Yeah.
So when people watch the movie, it speaks to them in different ways. And we worked diligently to make sure that it did. So one person may see a scene or a couple of scenes and say, I think that way too. Or I'm on the far spectrum and I look more like the good guy here.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of people who look at it and say, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. I feel that way too. Or I've always wanted to do something. I didn't know what to do. Now I know. So it speaks to different people for different reasons. As you noted, we followed those young girls. We actually followed young girls from the age of 13 to 16 for 3 full years. We found them when they were in middle school, and they were competing on a robotics team in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we followed them because of that study that we knew that women played sports, but in key, it was actually a team activity that we wanted to, not every woman can play a sport, right? So what is this team activity? So when you join a robotics league, it is very competitive, and you learn a bunch of other skill sets. So we followed these young ladies to find out, playing in a team activity, this team sport, will that help you? Will that give you an advantage when you get to college and when you start your career? And we show that in the film. Did that give them an advantage, and where are they today? So, and fun fact, they actually are in university now.
Oh, great. Yeah.
They are.
Wonderful.
And you know, and they come and speak with us sometimes, and they share stories about how being involved with the film helped them make decisions for their career, and whether or not it did work being part of that team activity. And what we found out, honestly, is you got to continue. You have to continue. The culture's too big of a tsunami, a big tsunami effect that can pull on your confidence. So you can spend your adolescence in a team activity, but you got to keep it on. You got to keep going.
Yes. Yes. And speaking of like Queen City Robotics, great group. I remember that both Leah, Queen City Robotics, and Lea-Ann's father discussed the role of the father in a daughter's life. So I wanted to touch on that. Do you feel that a girl's relationship with her father will greatly impact her self-image and self-esteem?
Of course. And
Yeah.
we're very clear to say, well, that's why we put it in the movie.
Yes.
We're very clear to also say, while we did follow fathers in the film, you know, it's any kind of mentor, you know, a figure in this young woman's life who's going to come in and encourage her, especially in those middle school years, because that's when all of these biases, these stereotypes start to ingrain themselves, and that's when they really stick. And I'm sure every woman listening to this now is like, middle school, yeah, that was insane. So it's like, you understand that that's a very important time period for a young woman, because she's learning who she is, how she can play a role in these different fields. Maybe she's not entirely sure what career she wants. I mean, she's young, so what is she curious about? And so it's for people to support her and really feed into that curiosity. So we were so excited to have those the fathers in that interview. You know, that was during one of the big competitions. And so we were outside and we would hear yelling of people inside, and we go, no, 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 stay. Okay, we're gonna see. We're almost done. We promise. Because they wanted to get in there and watch. You know,
wanted to watch the daughters compete.
We're like, we promise. We're gonna get you in there. You know.
But
And-
yeah, you know,
yeah.
Lesley, it's very important to have the dad involved. And we've been, you know, we speak after screening the film, and every so often we hear from a woman who says, you know, I never had a dad, but I'm very happy that my mom stepped in. So we're not saying that you only need a man in your life in middle school. It's great. These young ladies we followed, we're very lucky to have the dads that they have. However, like Ashley said, it's a mentoring type of situation, and we're trying to emphasize that.
Yeah, no, I think role models, you know, in general, as you mentioned, are very important. And, you know, it's great if a daughter can have their father's influence. But as you mentioned, you know, any role model, mentor, parental figure, if they're not the parent himself, that's really important. I mean, I'm super, probably like you too, I'm very close with my mom. We talk, especially when I'm not just piled on with work. We try to talk, even if it's a few minutes, almost every day. We're that mother and daughter. But my father, even though I don't, you know, speak on the phone with him as often as my mom, it is one of those things where, yeah, there is kind of that, oh, you know, oh, I have my dad's approval. And, you know, my father happens to be, on top of that, my father's kind of, he happens to be a very accomplished attorney and partner. And that kind of helps too, you know, like, but even if the father is not necessarily the most successful in the career, just having that, oh, good job, Lesley. And I think it does something, you know, to have that kind of, your parent that's of the opposite gender, that type of approval. You even hear of it with boys and their mothers, like having the mother's love. But as you mentioned, any role model, it's kind of this parental figure. It's important to have support. So I guess to both of you, who are and you can say either each other or even outside of each other, who are your role models and why?
Well, I always say my role models are honestly just the people that inspire me, and the people that inspire me are the people who are really working hard to make this change happen. So it just kind of, everyone inspires me, and I go, okay, what's your story? What are you doing? Okay, how can I help you? How can I then turn this into something that we can do? And yeah, we're a part of the United Nations, and so when we follow what they're doing, we just, is it wrong to say everyone? I mean, I'm wondering.
No, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think what it is there's so many, we're so hyper aware of what we're doing now, and we pay attention to the people who have paid attention, and it all just, Regina King.
Yeah.
We end the movie with her, and she's still knocking it out of the park, and she's making a difference. There are people, depending on the topic, there are role models. Joan Darling, she's in the film. She's somebody who has stuck with us from day one. We told her what's going on. She wasn't totally aware. She thought the same thing I thought, that you just have to work really hard and put on pants. Right? And she's 30 years older than me, and so which will tell you how long this is, it's been going on, generation after generation after generation. So our role models, it just depends on the situation. We're right now, our heads are focused on the UN. We're actually going to be screening the film on March 18th at the UN for
great.
CSW 65. What does CSW stand for?
The Commission on the Status of Women, which is an international conference that happens every year where we talk about women's issues around the globe. And so Pioneers in Skirts is going to screen to everyone, and going to lead a conversation on how can we activate change using these kind of interactive conversations, watching a film, getting people to really experience the empathy that is necessary for this change to happen. And so,
that's
everyone
awesome.
who is behind pushing this initiative, we're like, okay, what is it that they're doing? That's so inspiring to us, and that's what we go after.
That's great. And also, I was going to say, I still have several questions for you. Hopefully your energy's fine, but let me know. I could literally.
I just realized I didn't plug in my computer.
Oh, sure.
So can we do a pause and I'll go get my charger?
Yes, I'm going to pause.
Oh,
Or you can ask a question and Leanne can answer, but I'm going to run.
Okay, okay. I may do that. Let's see. Well, since it's just you here for the minute, tell me more about your, role as a producer and what you do as an activation marketer.
Well, as a producer, from day one, I started off with doing a lot of the research, right? So when you first start making a documentary, you go into a pre-production phase, and you have to do the research that says, here's where the world stands right now. Here's all the stats and the information. And here are the people or the stories or the information that you want to get out of people when you follow them or you talk to them and interview them. Ashley and I joined at the hip as producers. When we first started, it was just the two of us. We had one camera. And at the time, I was learning a lot about, before I was a producer in a film with her, and all I had to do was the stats and the Q&As and make sure that people answered the questions. We never tell people what to say, but we have to have the questions answered. This go round, when we started making the film, since it was just the two of us, I had to learn about sound. I had to learn about camera. There's several times where I was on camera, she was on camera talking to somebody, and I'm behind the camera. I drove the getaway car all the time.
Literally at one point we had a getaway car. So not in a bad way, but in a get going kind of way.
It's sending all the emails, making all the connections, creating the relationships. After creating the relationships, then you convince somebody that to give you the time of day and go on camera. And then you have to wait for their availability and then raise the money. So fundraising, huge part of it. We made the movie because we fundraised every scene. So as you look at every single scene in the film, we had to have a separate fundraiser to get there. We had fundraisers to finish the film. We wanted, as we were making the film, we decided, you know what, we need people to empathize with the topic. The only way that change can happen, we can't point fingers and say you're at fault. We need people to see themselves in the film and feel empathetic with a situation, either in a positive or negative way. And once you start feeling empathy, you want to do something. You want that thing to change. And in order to make it feel of empathy, it's the edit, right? The edit that we have, but it's also the sound. So we actually fundraised and so that we could go to Skywalker Sound and bring the movie into there and bring in those sounds that you hear that put you into that scene, right? So you're sitting in a car, you want to hear the other cars going by, right? So again, we only had one camera in the beginning, and as we went on, we ended up with crews and more tools, but not always. So we had to go to Skywalker Sound to add in that car that's going by, because I wasn't standing outside with a camera or with a Zoom recorder, recording that car that went by. So
Yes.
Okay, you can't move, Ashley.
I'm disappearing.
Don't disappear. We need you too much.
Well, that's what I did. Yeah. I did a lot of that stuff. So it was the complete gamut of what a producer does.
Yeah, no, a lot of things. I mean, definitely I guess, Renaissance, woman in that aspect, but at least things don't get dull, I know, you're like, they could be a little more dull sometimes. But and speaking of like fundraising, which you mentioned, and all of that, I'm going to put you on the spot, Ashley. I think you know what I'm probably going to ask, but when Brad, the venture capitalist, mentioned that he was happy to advocate for funding the film and asked you how much was required, he definitely withdrew a bit, hesitated to answer. And then he made me chuckle when he said, "Don't apologize. Tell me what you need." So why do you felt that you hesitated or were shy to answer? And do you feel that the average male director in your position would have responded the same way?
So the reason I was hesitant is because I was terrified. It was very awkward. No, I mean, there's so much advice out there that's telling you what to do and what not to do. And so I think I was just drowning in how am I supposed to fundraise for a movie, but not let everyone know that I need to fundraise for a movie. Like, it's this weird kind of like, don't tell them how expensive it's going to be, but don't tell them too much money because then they're not going to give it to you, And so I think I was just unsure of how to approach the situation because I've never had somebody say, "Tell me what you want."
Yeah,
I think like, "Hey, you need to apply for this. You need to go pitch this. You have to go to this session." And I'm learning. And that was the first time anyone's ever said, "What do you want?"
Yeah.
Like, oh God.
Okay, now I'm going to come in as her mom.
Sure. Go ahead, Mom.
It was actually my voice in the background going, "Tell him, tell him, tell him."
Oh, yes, I did. I was thinking the same.
We put producer. We didn't put mom because I'm a grown.
Right. I understand.
Yeah, and the thing is, if we want to be real, okay, put yourself into the shoes of all women in Hollywood right now. If you are a director or you're trying to advance your career as a director in film, you have been taught, and you are currently today, you go online right now and you look at all those programs. Right now, the culture in Hollywood is, if you're a woman and you want to get ahead, you have to apply for a program and there could be thousands and thousands of women applying,
Right.
and we will pick 3 to 5 out of those thousands. And oh my goodness, and out of those 3 to 5, those are typically the same 3 to 5 that are picked for all of them.
Yeah.
Because their requirements are, you have to have done something and be a success for it. So if I'm going to have you in my television program, so that, you know, you have to have already been successful at it. And what they do is they make you somebody who follows the people who are doing it. You can shadow, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So women are expected to still pay their dues differently than men in that field. And so here's Ashley, who has been in this arena of I have to pay my dues, I have to pay my dues, I have to pay my dues. I'm always told no, I'm always told no. I have to show that I can do this. I'm constantly having to show I can do this. And here's this man who is not used to any of that. He's a venture capitalist, and he's used to people coming to him and asking him for money. And he says, how much do you need?
That's right.
And he's surprised. He's surprised that she stops dead in her tracks, because she has all these rules in her head of what she's supposed to do and how she's supposed to act. Of course, then I'm mom on set, and I know she knows the number. And I don't have an experience of saying, you know, hello, person of influence, can you give me money? I don't normally do that either. So when you're not in that boat, and you're in that boat of, I have to job shadow, I have to apply,
Right. That's true.
more no's than everybody else, you know, or whatever. It's hard. It's very challenging. And it was a big deal for us to decide whether or not to put that scene in there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. And if you imagine, you thought of it, right? So
Yeah.
typically what happens with people when they see that scene, they typically see themselves. And they say, you know what, I feel the same way. I have trouble telling people. Again, it was our way to say, you're not alone. This happens. But it also, this is what it looks like when someone steps forward and supports you. And Brad Feld definitely. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And I asked that, I say I put you on the spot, but you know, of course, I'm not just trying to like, you know, make you, but I'm glad that you did decide to keep that in there, because although I'm sure like it could be like, oh, I don't want to look a certain way. I think it was in a way powerful because, and probably a learning lesson for you too, because as you said, mom, you know, Lea-Ann, that it is one of those things when you're not in that position and you're used to like having to, like you said, be amongst like thousands and maybe get a chance and hear more no's. You know, you, like you mentioned, Ashley, it's just like you were in that situation and you were just like, what's going on here? So, and also to your point, Lea-Ann, about people being able to relate, my friends may not think it now because even though I'm polite, be pretty direct. But when I was younger, you know, some people don't believe it now that know me. They're like, you had a hard time? Like, yes, I was so, you know, it was very difficult for me to spit certain things out. Exactly. Like, not even like that, even just like, not as, you know, maybe on the spot side, just other things where you're like, what's going on, and having a voice. And I kind of learned through different experiences in life how to be more direct. And then, you know, I married my husband, who happens to be like a New York, keep it straight, run you over, you know, he's a great guy, but you know, the New York mentality, Wall Street. So then I had to learn how to be like, hey, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, it's interesting, you know, it's interesting how there's love there. Of course, we love each other, but in certain ways, you know, I softened him out being the kind of more nurturing personality that I am. So in ways I rubbed off on him in terms of, okay, take it down 5 notches. But then on other ends, like he kind of rubbed off on me. It's like, hey, just say what you want. Hey, this is in New York. If you don't say it, you're gonna you know. So it really. I have to say there are other experiences too, but I'm gonna give some credit to hubby on this one. Being around like a type like him, and I'm sure other people even in his field of finance, other women he described even in this field, they didn't you may have not been asking, at least Brad was asking. They would have said, hey, I need this for this and I need it now. And, and
I
so
always
it's a
have to tell
totally
people.
different.
Yeah, I tell people I'm fine now. I'm
Yes.
very good at asking now.
Yes.
That was like a turning point. I mean, I feel like it's so easy. You know, we all need business development. We all need to become better at what we want to do. But it's so easy to just say, oh, women don't know how to negotiate. And women don't know how to ask for money. Like, sure, but let's stop blaming the woman and let's look at what has trained her to be scared of negotiating or to be scared of asking for that money. I mean, I'm telling you, I became better at negotiating because I worked freelance and I understood the value of my time.
Yes.
And I don't walk around and go, oh, women need to get better. I'm like, let me teach you how to do it. It's not your fault. We're just told to just do everything and do it for little to no money because we want the opportunity.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's an excellent point. So yeah, I'm glad on that, you know, you showed that clip. I think it's really empowering actually. And I'm sure you learned a lot from it. It made me think about things I've learned about, you know, when friends were like, hey, just say what, you know, you don't have to, I've had people in the past say, you know, you don't have to dance around, just tell me what you want. And then, you know, after we learn those things. So I'm actually glad you had experience. And Brad, by the way, seems like a delightful, such a wonderful individual. So that's great that, you know, you have that connection with him, even just from the clips. He just seemed like a good guy. And, you know, speaking, you know, on the topic of Brad, he was discussing that in a corporate environment that some women, let's say amongst only one other woman, for example, feel like, I remember you used the term zero-sum game, that they feel like they're in that situation. From your personal experience or from hearing the experiences of other women in similar situations, do you feel that women are often more competitive versus collaborative in situations where there's amongst only one other female?
I mean, we both have different situations, right?
Yeah.
I think most women, it all depends who you talk to, right? But in my career, I haven't had any issues with women. You know, and I came from tech, and my background came from tech. I worked at IBM, and I was often one of the only women in the room, right? So when other women came in the room, I was excited. We worked together. When women work together, they're stronger together. I think when that topic, we decided not to really focus too much on that negative topic in the film for one reason. There's excuses for women and telling them that they need to fix themselves, and that's one of them, right? And in my experience, when women are together and they're professional, they're better together. I don't know, how is it with you? You're on set with women. You seem to be happy with that.
Well, I'd say we're more collaborative. And I think part of it is because we know there's a bias telling us we're not supposed to be. And again, that's why it's so important to be aware of it, because if you check it and you go, oh, you know, what is happening right now? Am I perceiving her a certain way because it's really the truth or not? But I definitely, I've seen a difference of being on an all-female crew and then transitioning to men on the team. I mean, it was a huge, almost culture shock to go from this really supportive environment where people listened.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I think truthfully, maybe in high school into college, we're succumbing to the training of we're not supposed to support each other until somebody knocks us out of it. And we go, oh, actually, when we say women supporting women, it's not just a cry for change. It's actually because so much of our culture in our media, I mean, you watch movies from even the 2000s and you go, wow, the only female character in here is just to help push the main character, who's a man, along. You know, that happened just last year, right? And you're like, okay, I'm not seeing my value here. I don't see any women working together in anything that I watch. So of course you're getting this subtle bias of women just don't work together.
Yes, I could see that, and it's interesting because, and probably same with yourself, but I noticed those kind of subtleties and maybe sometimes not so subtleties, nuances mentioned in films, even, mostly, right, like media and things like that of movies or type Mean Girl movies, or even things that aren't portraying that send that message of the antithesis of collaboration of women. And it's hard for me to see personally because my spirit, it just like naturally is of supporting, helping other women. And I mean, in my own life, of course, it's valued, and that's what counts. And I have other individuals, including other very supportive women around me, which of course your influences make a huge difference. So of course I focus on those positive things, but having that as such a natural part of myself, it is disheartening when you kind of uh, witness those subliminal messages sent, or witnessing other women that don't get it, and they somehow feel like they have to compete versus lift others up. But I mean, the most you can do with that is just, not trying to be spiritual, but pray, and then also just continue doing good things to lift other women up.
There are so many women's groups out there to join that you're going to surround yourself with the women who
Yes.
see the world the way you do, for the most part,
100%.
And I do think sometimes I find myself, I mean, even just on a plane coming to North Carolina, I found myself interacting with somebody who wasn't listening to me and only listened to the man that was talking. And I was like, oh crap, you mean this is still happening?
I know.
Oh man.
And it's spoiled. It's not going to stop anytime soon. That's the whole thing. And that's where we get back to that grit and that fortitude.
Yeah.
You need to surround yourself with the professionalism that you need in your life. You need women and men who don't judge the way other people do. And that judging is what is everybody's downfall. We had a whole section, we had to cut the movie down to 60 minutes, but we had a whole section on judging. We were like, okay, we have to cut it, but it really got to us at the core, because women are the worst judgers of other women, and it's our culture.
Yeah.
If you decide not to have kids, you're judged. If you decide to have kids and stay home, you're judged. If you are a man and you have kids, you're judged as a incredible guy. If you're a woman and you're working and you have kids at home, you're judged that you're not at home, with the kids. So this judging thing sucks big time. It sucks.
Yes.
And so we showed that whole section with Brad about, you put one women in the room, you put two women in the room, and then once you have enough women in the room, that judging or that defense mechanism starts to go away. So our core message is surround yourself with the right people. Be more self-aware of what's pulling you down, and surround yourself with the right people.
Yes, that's so important. And also, when you mentioned the clips with including with Brad and those topics, on that topic too, I love actually when you're mentioning just now about situations where sometimes you're like, is this still happening, where somebody's listening to the man that you trust me, I can say it does, like in your mother. And yeah, so when you said that, I think I probably, excuse me if I rolled my eyes, it wasn't at you, it was just that, yes, it still happens.
Yeah.
But I like that, in your documentary, that Brad was saying that he was really aware of those things, especially being considered an influential man in this industry, influential person, including man, being aware of those topics of, I believe he mentioned, or the person, I think, that had female that had worked with him in a capacity, mentioned that they were in a room, and that either someone had talked over her or something, and that Brad kind of brought it back and said, oh, I really like the female's idea. And it kind of gave that, subliminal, Brad approves. Oh, okay. And those things are so important, because there are, for lack of better words, some men that do the whole mansplaining thing. You're like, really? So it's nice to have an advocate such as Brad and others out there, who are male, that are aware of those issues and actually do something, even if it's just subtle. Sometimes the subtleties are the most effective because, right, they're just very effective to do those things. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Okay, no, we
Well,
can't be in here more. Yes.
Just one point
Yeah.
to that is like we just want to be clear that it shouldn't just be on the woman to have to change our culture, and we
Yes.
and we have Asha saying that in the movie is just it shouldn't be on the person, the minority group to change. It needs to be a decision made, and that's why maybe these mandates are important, or it needs to be a leader deciding that something needs to change. And then they need to actively do something. It shouldn't be on me to have to fight for myself all the time. Like, no wonder you're exhausted.
Yes.
Exhaustion is so pervasive, and burnout is so pervasive. And so you just go, okay, what can other people do to start to support women in the room?
Yes. And we mentioned Asha and the topic of women and minorities. And it made me think there was a clip from a film, you'll know what it is, I was curious what it is, but where Angela Bassett was talking to Denise, the Indian boy, and the Black girl, and saying that, they're minorities, and it's for the Black girl that she's going to work 3 times as hard. So having had negative experiences yourself in the film industry because of being a woman, even though you're in the racial majority, has this given you more empathy to women of color who, by virtue of having kind of 2 strikes against them, have possibly endured even more discrimination or hardship?
Of course. If anything, I struggled with even admitting that I had hardship. When we started to do this kind of research and really dive into it, again, 6 years ago, it seems like some people finally caught up to us in 2020. They're like, oh yes, welcome to the conversation, friends. Because
right.
When we finally, again, we had to start to correct our own biases, and we started going, oh my God, I had no idea. And now I feel guilty that I had no idea. Is my story even worth it? Because there's so much more going on beyond me. And so that's something I really struggled with. And I still struggle with it, because who am I to say that anything I did was even impacted by just being a woman? It's like, obviously I had to step up. So what do? I share the story because people are probably going to listen to me and care, because I look like who I am. And that's upsetting, but I had to just say, okay, if anything, I'm going to be somebody who is that voice. Maybe I can be like Brad and bring up people in the room who are not being listened to. I mean, that's kind of how I dealt with the frustration of realizing how terrible it is. And then, I feel like there's empathy on both sides. White men, you feel like you're being attacked. Well, listen, so much is going on that you don't have to deal with. Let me explain. And then I can go to women and women of color and say, I get it. I'm so sorry. It's like, I feel like it's in that moderator zone. And I guess I just always perpetually feel a little bit frustrated that we can't just focus on the work and focus on the art.
Yes.
Of being filmmakers, of really just pursuing what we've always dreamt of being. And I try to talk about it all the time, and just keep it a part of every conversation.
When I think representation is the key, it was our theme. When we made the film, when you make a documentary film like this, you don't pick and choose who's in it all the time. So for example, we were invited to the White House it was a White House summit because of the topic of our film. We showed up, we had all access with our cameras and everything, and Ash and I were just running around meeting people and interviewing people. And that's where we met Sarah, who is the CEO that talked about Brad Feld and how he supported her. She told us her story. And so we flew to Seattle to talk to her more about it. Then we raised money to fly to Colorado to meet Brad and ask him how he ended up knowing all this stuff. And he introduced us to Lucy Sanders, who is the NC-WET person that you were talking about that talked about bias.
Yes.
So when you do this, you don't pick and choose who that person is. and what they look like. You want to follow this story of this point that we were trying to make, is that men are part of the solution, right? And hello, man, how did you find this out? How did you become part of the solution? So when we were speaking with a bunch of women who had just started their careers and in the beginning, and we asked them, you know, what it's been like the first 3 years of your career. Have you noticed anything? One of the women is African American, and one of Ashley's friends from college. And she wasn't drinking any of the wine that we had out. So she came up to us later and she said, you know, I just found out I'm pregnant, and here's the issue. I didn't want to talk about it on camera. We're like, oh, please, can you please talk about it on camera? And we ended up following her for 3 years. And so she got featured. It was, on one hand, it was exactly, you know, the way that things should happen when you make a documentary film. You find a story and you follow it. But representation, her being African American, was very important to us, so that people saw people that that reminds them of themselves, right? And they can empathize. So Lily, when she was in the film, she made very good points about what it's like to be of that age of, oh my gosh, I could possibly have a baby.
Yeah.
We have learned in studies that you don't even have to be married to be discriminated against. Just be at that age. But she was married and she got pregnant, and she didn't know that, she didn't plan it. And it was in the middle of her negotiating, when she found out she was negotiating for a raise and for a position move, moving upward. And she was really afraid to tell her boss that she was pregnant, because she just knew she would never get the promotion. And she didn't. She ended up not getting the promotion until after she had the baby, and pushed really hard for it. Now that's very different than what a man would go through, right?
Right.
So that was the whole reason we put that in there. But the representation is key.
Yeah.
If you look at our poster, we don't have our faces on the poster. We have faces and women in careers, because those are the women we're trying to talk to. These are the women who are going to get hit with that tsunami we talked about, culture. And we want them to know we're speaking to you. We're speaking to you. So if you look at our poster, you'll see not us.
Yes.
Practice what you preach. I mean, even we don't have a lot of money, but if we can pay for childcare so that you can come and help us edit, we're going to do it. You know, it's like, that's a lot of what we try to do with Pioneers.
Yes, that's wonderful. And I'm glad you mentioned, although I wanted to say, when you were asking about, or when I was asking about, you know, the empathy towards minority women, and you were saying that you really struggled with it, and, you know, we're wondering if even your story counts. I just want to let you know, I'm sure you already do, it does count, because, you know, your struggle is your struggle. And even though we're of two different races, your story your struggle, and then how you manifested, you know, the desire to do what you're doing through the documentary and showing these experiences, that really resonated with me from it. So I even though I don't understand your specific feelings of, oh, should I do this in this situation, because I'm obviously a woman of color, I can understand how you may have felt, but it does not make your story any less impactful, and the story that you're presenting, the documentary that you're presenting, any less impactful. In fact, it's extremely impactful, and I think it's wonderful how many women and even men are affected by this. So your story's your story. And I think also, though, what you said, which is good to note, is that, you know, when there are, let's say, you know, white men that are struggling, and when you said, you know, that you don't want to maybe be mean, but say, you know, I'm going through this, other women of minority, you can kind of relate to a different degree of how it can look. But you did not look that way at all. You're going through a legitimate experience that is a hardship, and a hardship is a hardship, you know. So me have, as a Black woman, I not at all looked at it and said, oh, this white girl, not at all. I was, to be blunt, I was not like that at all, and I hardly doubt anybody else watching this film would feel that way because of how relatable even your experience being a white female was still an experience that other people have had, white, Black, like people at the table mentioned, attractive, not attractive, baby, not baby. Like, I don't know, I can't remember the name of a woman at the table that had mentioned when you were discussing the topic of pregnancy and, if she would be deterred or how was her experience as a mother. And she was just like, add baby to the list. You've already got woman, you've already got, and so that's how it is. You may not be a woman of color, you may not have a child, but you've experienced that. So then that is a similar experience, like being a woman of color and having a child and being handicapped or anything you want to add. Those are just other things where it's like, you know what, I'm already discriminated against. It doesn't really matter, even as a white woman, or, why not just add these other things? So, when I say we, people of color, myself can relate. So I think it's a great thing that you did this. I just thought by asking that question that you probably did go through, having some more empathy, because you're like, wait, I'm going through this. Oh my God, I didn't realize, that other people of color are not only going through maybe what I am, but much worse, because it's okay. You're not expected to experience that, but having more awareness of it. Just like I've had a million conversations with my husband, being older and a white guy in a, position in his field of success, where we've had these discussions, and I'm happy to say he was always a nice person. Otherwise I wouldn't have married him, but just having that, but not having that previous awareness, like through being with me and dating, and now, having been married for a while, it's, he's been more empathetic, to that cause. And to me, even if he were just my friend, hypothetically, and I had that impact on him, that would mean a lot, just increasing people's awareness, because we all can experience directly the struggles. I don't know what it's like to be in a wheelchair or handicap. I'm not. But by hearing the stories, or by maybe having a friend, and just increasing awareness and empathy is it's a positive. So I think you definitely I feel you achieved that strongly,
Right.
in your documentary. So.
And you'll see it as you're watching the film, you'll see that we put a lot of statistics in there.
Yes.
And we made sure to show, here's the basic statistics that shows it sucks for women. And then we break it out and we show, wow, it really sucks for women who are not white. Yeah. And we went through a lot of work to make sure that every statistic we had would show how awful it is, and then how really awful it is for certain women. It's because as we're making the film, we realize there's this term called privilege, and people really need to understand what that means. Yeah. Right. And we tried to show that in the film. We're privileged, but that person may be more privileged than you.
Right. And the irony is the movie's being well received internationally because they're going, oh, the US is dealing with this. I don't feel so bad.
It's true.
They go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're not exactly. Any bit better than I am.
Exactly. Yeah. Which it's kind of the bitter sweetness in a way of what you just said. It's like, in one way, it's like, oh, wow. Like you said, other countries are like, wow, they're going through this too. So it's kind of like some sweetness in it. But then the bitter part of it is like, we're America. We're like supposed to be the greatest country for opportunity. And yet we're still facing these issues. Like you said, I'm sure it could be worse. Like you were talking about with being a white woman, as being an American, I'm sure, a foreign person could be like, really, you're complaining? But the fact is, it's still an issue. And that says a lot for being one of the most advanced, nations in the world, and being the nation of opportunity and all of that. So, yeah.
Like everyone's journey has to start somewhere to realize what needs to change. And so I'm sure your husband's journey started when you came into his life, and then for some men, it's
I'd like to think so.
It's got to start. And you forgive yourself for all the crap you did, and then you move forward, and you have to choose to change every single day.
Yes. 100%. I do not want to take too much other of your time because we've had such a great
We're an
conversation.
entire movie right now.
I know. I'm like literally between my interest in the topic, I could just talk on anything, especially things. And then just this being so interesting, your input. I know. I literally like we could have our own movie. So I'm trying to think because I want to wrap it up just for your guys' sake. So maybe I'll just ask 2 more questions or something. But for Lily, you mentioned Lea-Ann. Lily, and I was going to ask about her, right, with her kind of struggle with being pregnant and having to deal with, not getting the promotion. I also remember the paid holidays that she was not receiving that she was supposed to receive. Did this, especially Ashley, did this make you reflect more about your personal decisions, regardless of whether you want to have kids or not? Did this make you think, wow, if I were to have children, would this be difficult, especially as a director and a working woman?
I think it's something that I turned around and started to educate other people about. And we talk a lot in the movie about the movie, and we're in a lot of conversations. And then there's a lot of mentorship that I do. And I think one of the biggest pieces of advice is you have to have these conversations before you accept the job.
Yeah.
Like, that's something important for employers to know. Like, women are being discriminated against because they might have a family. So you need to, if you want those women in there, if you want that diversity and you want to have a better bottom line that Kat Cole says, then you need to create an environment that's more inclusive and supportive of women who do make that choice. Because, like Andres says in the film, men also have children, surprise, surprise.
And you have to be more
Yeah,
supportive of
exactly.
men who want to be fathers and play a bigger role in their child's life. I mean, it's all again, a cultural thing, right? Dads want to do more with their kids, but it's not acceptable. If a dad takes time off to be with their kids, yeah, they're looked at as great, but if they overdo it, then they're slacking as well, right? And a woman, if she takes off even one day, she's slacking. So, but then she's a bad mom if she doesn't, right? So, but we're finding that for things to change, employers need to pay attention to both women and men as to what their needs are and make it a very family-friendly workplace. And we're not just talking about kids, right? So as a young person who doesn't have kids, they want to take time off to take a class. They want to take time off to go do something physical and go to the park and go for a walk or do something. And not just a younger generation, but people have different needs and wants in their life. And until we reach a world where employers are more thoughtful and purposeful in their decisions on meeting their employee needs, then nothing is going to change. Right now, and you saw Andres talk about that, it's not a woman, if you frame it as a woman's issue, she wants to be able to work part-time, right, so that she can be home with the kids. It's never going to change. You have to frame it as a human issue, as an employee issue, and open it up to men who want to spend some time with their kids as well.
Yes, absolutely. When you were mentioning the how women are doing a lot, and if a man does a little bit, he's given like, oh, he's so great, when women do so much more and aren't given that. It reminded me, I believe I know her first name's Amy. It may be Amy Wong. There's a comedian. Do you know who I'm speaking of? I'll send you a clip. Yes, I believe her name's Amy Wong. I hope I didn't mess it up, but she does a funny skit, in one of her on stage routines, and I'll send it to you, but she talks about, having the baby and having to going all this stuff and, barely being able to sleep and all the physical things that go along with it. And that her husband went to like one doctor's appointment. She's like, everyone's like, oh, he's so great. Oh my God, he's the best. And she's like, he went to one doctor's appointment. I've done like this and that and did, and it was, she's hysterical, first of all, but it's so true. It's like he goes one time and he's just like given all that. She's like, guess who goes to every doctor's appointment? Me.
Well, I mean, when I was working at IBM, I had to take off the pictures of my daughter off the
Yes.
I couldn't advertise that I was a mom.
Yeah.
It didn't pay.
Yeah.
It was a nick against me. So, you know, and then people, it's just, I mean, we've talked about this already, but it's just unfair. We need to make some change. That's why we made the film. It's not easy to take all those issues we just talked about and putting into a 60-minute film.
Yeah.
And we had over 100 hours of footage.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you think about it, you follow people for 3 years. We followed 3
know.
young girls and we followed a young mother for 3 years. And then we went around the world or around the United States to talk to people about solutions and what it was like for them. We are now in a position where we take all of these issues, we try to put it all into one film. I mean, we can make one film about bias. We can make one film about a woman's career, one film about, you know, a mother and what it's like to be a mom. But we need to make it so that people can follow that bouncing ball and not get confused, right? It's really hard to put a lot of stuff into that soup and stir it up.
And then have levity.
Yeah, and so we and as you liked some of the cultural footage that we put in there, scenes from films, kind of make you laugh. They're purposefully put in where they were. Whenever things start to get super stressed, we want people to keep feeling there's a reason to care about this. We don't want them to tune out and go, oh my gosh, this is just too much crap going on in the world. So we throw in something to make them laugh.
Yeah.
And then come back to the crap again.
No, it's a good balance, you know?
Yeah, I mean, whoever's listening to this will go back and watch it again and go, oh, that's right. See, just when you're starting to go, oh my gosh, we bring you back out.
Exactly.
That took a lot of work to do. And it was only for the reason of, we are tired of having generation after generation after generation of moving just a little bit forward in the way we think and what we do and what we say. So the whole purpose of the film is to fast track some change. And we are happy that it's being used by people around the world now to be screened and have those meaningful conversations. We're very proud of that. We're happily surprised that a lot of companies are using our film right now to talk about equality in general. Yeah. So the lack of equality for women is a great way to open the door to that conversation that can be very uncomfortable about the lack of equality for everyone. So we're happy about that. We're happy that it opens that door to conversation. We're proud of it. We're proud of that.
It's great that you're inspiring so many people, and that, as you mentioned, companies and others are really latching on and seeing the value in what Pioneers in Skirts has to offer. And I'll say 2 quick things, and then I'll wrap it up. And our like you said, we could have made a movie just in this clip, partially to my leadership of that. But okay, so I just wanted to say that, Mom, I loved the home videos that you had, some clips with Ashley. That was too cute. And by the way, like, Mom, you look well, I guess it would be opposite, but yes, I can see the resemblance. Mom, when you were walking, I was like, Ashley looks just like that, at the probably comparable age. So I just thought that was adorable. I wanted to say that. And then something that really made me think about it, and I was discussing the topic with my mom when I was telling her about the documentary. She and mentioned the commercial where the guy was saying, oh, my wife's great, something about, except she makes horrible coffee, or she'd be perfect if she made coffee. He was shaving, something along those lines. Yeah. And I know, which is bad, but that's what media and things that you talked about, the underlying causes there of the messages that women and young girls have. With that said, Ooh, hope I'm not blinking. Oh yes, with that said, it made me think about Duchess Meghan Markle. I don't know if you ever heard this story, but when she was, I think 9 or 11, very young, she saw a commercial on that was, I believe, a Dawn commercial, one of its constituents
Oh
companies.
yeah.
Yeah, that was saying women all over America are having trouble scrubbing pots and pans. She wrote, you may have heard about this, she wrote to different women, including Hillary Clinton, other like powerful individuals, including Don, and said, you know, why is this women all over America, more than just women do the dishes, men can do the dishes too. They changed that commercial, and it's just something I saw in an interview. She's one person that I really admire. And I just was like, wow, what at 9 or 11, around that age, years old, that was just such an empowering thing. And when I saw that commercial, it made me think, oh, don't let Megan see this. She
We want her to see it. But
well, yes, well, exactly.
Please, Megan.
Exactly.
She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing, and it just sends that message of being hyper aware, right? So at such a young age. I mean, we were just watching Born Identity, the very first Born movie from 2014. So we started making the movie around that time. That's when we started doing the research. And
no, Lucy. We were watching Lucy.
No, but I'm just the Born Identity too. But the Born Identity, when you watch it, you start realizing, oh my gosh, everybody in this room is male. All these decision makers are male. All the police officers are male. Every single person is male. And in the movie Lucy too.
And in the movie Lucy.
All that. But we have a hard time getting through those films because we're so hyper aware. And since 2014, 2015 timeframe, if you start watching movies from 2019 and 2020, you'll see a big difference. There's more women involved. And we also watched a show recently, the one last night where they're singing
Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check that out.
You need to watch that. So last night's episode that we watched, we were pleasantly surprised and proud of them because they spend last season where she is the female lead for a team of coders and they're all men. And then she gets promoted and now she's the boss over all the men. And she hires a man to be the boss over them. And they start acting like frat guys. And gets into the elevator and she's talking to 3 other female coders who are the only female coders in the company. And it occurs to her, she wants to have them on her team, not just because they're women, but because she needs a team of employees who are different. She doesn't need a bunch of frat guys. She needs people who think differently, very diverse and inclusive. So she brings them on board and takes, and puts them in there, and the guys are just in shock. Well, that's the way people relate to it, and the way people react to it is their own thing. But the way we react to it when we're sitting there watching the show is, oh my gosh, who are the people writing? Who are the producers? We are so happy and we're very proud that a story is written so that the general population, because we're all influenced by what we see in the media, the general population is seeing somebody step forward and making some changes for really good reasons. And we hope that the rest of the storyline will show that the women are valuable assets on the team, right? Yes. So, and we don't want them to show how women don't get along, right? We don't want them to show that. We want them to show the reality that most of us have, that if you're professional enough and you have respect for each other, then it's an incredible, strong relationship and powerful team. So Yeah, I know. You obviously pushed a button for me.
Yeah,
I was,
no, hey, that's what I'm here, right?
yeah.
That's what I'm here for, 100%. And you know, right, to inspire those type of conversations. And I mean, what a great conversation, you know, that we've had today. Like, I literally, now I understand how you had, like, you know, over, did you say over 100 hours of content? Or I could see that,
Yeah.
because just in this call today, I'm like, I could keep going, going, but for, you know, I won't. But it's just such a compelling topic. You know, my last question for you guys is, what can we expect to see from you next, or anything you want to discuss in terms of upcoming projects, and let people know how they can, of course, keep in touch with all the wonderful things you have going on.
Yeah, I think I'll speak to that. Right now, people go to our website, which is very easily seen on this page right here,
Yes, I love it.
pioneersandskirts.com. They can do a bunch of stuff. They can look at how they can watch the film. Anybody can watch it right now, but also at the film festival, which we're very proud to be a part of. And but companies, if they want to book it, organizations can book it, individuals can book the film. What our goal is to have very productive conversations, very similar to this one, happening in your home, at your job, in your community. We mentioned before that we're going to be screening at the UN in March. International Women's Day is March 8th. We're trying to book as many of those screenings coupled with conversations. However, the March 18th screening at the UN is actually a kickoff of what we call an impact relay. We decided that, especially with the pandemic happening and everybody watching virtually all the movies that everybody's been making, we'd like to take our movie around the world. So the first week of February, we're going to open up on our website an application process for NGOs, organizations that advocate for women, and each country has their own issues. Each area of the world has their own issues, and we want them to tell us what those are and how they think our movie can help. And we will offer a free screening for these NGOs and be part of their conversations. We want the movie to be a catalyst for conversation and empathy and change within these points. So that's next. In 2021 is our big, what you would call a roadshow, but again, we call it an impact relay. We're going to start at the UN and then end, and we have not determined what the end destination is yet. So when you have a relay, again, you know my Olympic background.
Yes.
When you have a relay, you start somewhere and then you bounce around to different places, and then you end and you have a big purposeful ending. And that's what we're going to be doing. Our biggie is the UN. So that's the beginning.
Great. Well, I definitely look forward to continuing to keep up with what you guys have been going on, and keeping in touch in general. Just wonderful. Thank you so much to both of you, Ashley and Lea-Ann. It was a pleasure doing this Q&A with you. And the Paris International Film Festival is so happy to have you. Much continued success to you in the future.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Of course.